621 Reconciliation. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So In the end, Yi Zhan decided to bring Xiangyun back to Cloud Sky Peak to teach her. He felt rather helpless, not knowing who to ask to teach her. While Yi Zhan was pondering this dilemma, Xiangyun tugged on his sleeve and asked curiously, "Teacher, I've just beaten up this group of children. Have I become invincible among my peers?" Her words left everyone dumbfounded. They stared at each other, not knowing what to say. PFF'd. Yuelin laughed. Then, she squatted in front of Xiangyun and asked softly, "Xiangyun, who taught you this?" Upon hearing this, the little girl's eyes darted around randomly before answering, "This is what my senior sisters told me. If I can beat all of the brats from the same generation as me into submission, then I will be invincible among my peers. Since I just beat up this group of children, shouldn't I be invincible?" Everyone looked at her with amused expressions. This line of logic was really quite unique. Gao Shun also could not resist laughing. This little girl was really too funny. The real reason she attacked the kids was definitely because she wanted to claim the title of invincible. "Junior brother Yi, the disciple you've accepted is really talented. You have to teach her well. I have high hopes for her." After saying that, Gao Shun left in a carefree manner. At this moment, Yi Zhan felt helpless and could only fly back to Cloud Sky Peak with Xiangyun. This little girl was bound to become a talking point in the sect. Then again, he had expected this when he accepted her. At this moment, Gao Shun, who had just returned to Hidden Sword Peak, was smiling brightly. Seeing their teacher so happy, his disciples were very puzzled. What had happened to make their teacher so happy? Gao Tianyu leaned in and asked, "Father, what made you so happy?" "Good things should be shared." Hearing that, Gao Shun smiled and said, "Your martial uncle Yi just accepted a new disciple. She was sent to the study hall today, and the first thing she did was beat up all of the children there. Even Elder Huang was not spared. She's only 6 years old, yet has quite the temper. Chief Li Dahai's son was beaten up to the point he had panda eyes. It really was too spectacular." Gao Shun laughed even more happily when he recalled what Li Yi had said about his father. It really was too funny. When the group of disciples heard this, they all laughed in unison. It seemed that Martial Uncle Yi's newest disciple was quite the character, and even managed to beat up a whole group of children. Then again, knowing Martial Uncle Yi's eye for talent, it was only to be expected. Both Zhu Guiyu and Feng Xian were monstrous geniuses, and this little girl would undoubtedly be no different. At this moment, news about Xiangyun was spreading rapidly. After laughing for some time, the smile on Gao Shun's face finally disappeared after he recalled the matter the chiefs had discussed with Lei. "All right, go and cultivate immediately. The Divine Seal Peaks gathering is coming soon. Each of you should do your best to obtain a good ranking and raise the prestige of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect." After saying these words, Gao Shun suddenly noticed a disciple with a lowered head among his other disciples. It was Xiao Feng. He deeply regretted this matter. He had been entangled in his personal grudge with Yi Zhan for far too long, and had neglected this disciple of his. It was precisely because of this reason that this disciple of his had become withdrawn, and rarely interacted with others. Zhu Guiyu, who had joined the sect at the same time as his disciple, was already quite famous now, and was widely acknowledged as a peerless genius. In comparison, Xiao Feng was still a divine mystic realm cultivator. All of his previous arrogance had disappeared, and he was now lacking self-confidence. Seeing this disciple of his, Gao Shun hated himself for being so stupid back then. His grudge had implicated his disciples. Thinking this, Gao Shun decided to try to make things up to him. "Xiao Feng, come with me." Xiao Feng was shocked and even a little panicked after being suddenly called out. Gao Tianyu smiled and cheered him on. "It's fine, junior brother. Go and meet master." Hearing this, Xiao Feng nodded and agreed. He followed Gao Shun into his residence. He was mired in a sea of despair and hopelessness, but at this moment, a flame of hope had been ignited in his heart. His teacher had not forgotten him. When he entered the residence nervously, he saw that Gao Shun had already sat down and was waiting for him quietly. Seeing Xiao Feng walk in, Gao Shun sighed and said, "My disciple, I can understand if you hold resentment toward me. I do regret the things I did in the past, and I know I've let you down. Teacher, I don't. I've never hated you." With red eyes, Xiao Feng continued, "I can only blame myself for being too lacking in terms of aptitude. When teacher needed me, I couldn't do anything to help. I've never made you proud, teacher." Sigh. Seeing Xiao Feng sobbing, Gao Shun felt even more guilty. "This is all my fault. I didn't teach you properly before. I've decided that from today onward, you'll stay by my side and cultivate with my guidance. Although my abilities are not as great as your martial uncle Yi's, I will definitely not let your talent go to waste. I hope that you can become a strong cultivator one day. Don't waste your talent. Xiao Feng was touched by his teacher's words. He had been prepared to give up after failing to meet his teacher's expectations time and time again. However, he had now discovered that his teacher had not abandoned him, and even wanted him to cultivate by his side. Xiao Feng was very grateful for this and kowtowed to Gao Shun. 622 Secluded Cultivation, Part 1. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Not only was Xiao Feng grateful to his teacher, but he was also grateful to Yi Zan. Had the grudge between the two peaks not been resolved, he would have been left by the wayside and would have had to live out his days as a mediocre cultivator. Alright, get up quickly. The gathering is coming soon, so I have to cultivate in seclusion for a few days. You can come with me. I hope that your strength can also improve with this. You can then try to get a good ranking at the gathering. As soon as he finished speaking, Gao Shun took Xiao Feng with him to cultivate in seclusion. Elsewhere, Yi Zan had already brought Shang Yun back to Cloud Sky Peak. Zhu Guoyu and Feng Xian also hurried over. After seeing Yi Zan's frown, Zhu Guoyu asked nervously, "Teacher, why did you bring third sister back so quickly? Shouldn't she be learning how to read in the study hall?" Yi Zan did not really know how to answer that question as he looked at Shang Yun, who was still smiling from ear to ear. Learn to read. This little girl was already a dropout. After waving his hand, Yi Zan said helplessly, "Yuner has already beaten up all of the children at the study hall. She even beat up Elder Huang. Therefore, she's been sent back." Hearing this, Zhu Guoyu and Feng Xian were also very helpless. Before sending her to the study hall, Zhu Guoyu had explicitly warned Shang Yun not to cause trouble, but it seemed that her warning had fallen on deaf ears. At this moment, Feng Xian squatted down and asked, "Third sister, why did you beat everyone up the moment you arrived?" "They asked for it," Shang Yun replied seriously. "They actually wanted me to be their underling. That's never gonna happen. HMPH. I didn't even beat him very hard." After saying this, she looked at Feng Xian and asked very happily, "Second sister, I've already beaten up all of my peers in the study hall. Have I become invincible among my peers?" They were at a loss as to what to say. That old man had really led Shang Yun astray. Why did he have to tell her such things? Now, she would rather beat up her peers than make friends with them. "Teacher, how should we deal with this matter?" Zhu Guoyu asked worriedly. After all, this was a very important matter. If Shang Yun could not even recognize words, how could she cultivate? Yi Zan shrugged with a helpless expression. After rolling his eyes, he said, "There's no other way. Since she's dropped out, we'll have to be responsible for her learning. There's no rush though. After all, she's still young and doesn't need to learn how to use divine powers yet. I'll leave the responsibility of teaching her how to read to you both. If you really can't teach her, I'll teach her how to train her body first." Hearing this, the two of them agreed. Actually, even if one did not know how to read, they could still train their bodies. After all, there was no need for a cultivation technique or divine power to do so. All one needed to do was exercise and train. Yi Zan wanted Shang Yun to train her body first so that she could lay a solid foundation for her cultivation in the future. Although Yi Zan's method of training his body was easy, it was also very powerful. As long as she could train her body well, she would be able to display even more of her extraordinary strength. The one thing it did require was tenacity, as well as a large amount of heavenly treasures. However, the latter was something that Yi Zan had plenty of. "Teacher, for the time being, Xian and I will teach her. We'll each take turns taking care of her and teaching her while we cultivate." Yi Zan nodded. "Alright, I'll leave it to you guys then. I will have to enter secluded cultivation for a few days. We'll discuss any other matters after I'm done." As soon as he finished speaking, his disciples left, and Yi Zan entered his cultivation room. Ever since he planted the water cloud fruit tree on Cloud Sky Peak, the spiritual energy here had become more concentrated, which was a boon to anyone cultivating here. Moments later, Yi Zan took out the fiery phoenix's divine bone that he had yet to fully absorb. Since it still contained power, he wanted to finish absorbing it while he was in seclusion. As for the immortal heavenly treasure, Yi Zan was not prepared to refine it yet. He wanted to wait until he reached the peak of the Supreme Realm first. At that time, he would be able to break through to the ancient realm smoothly. Does this fiery phoenix divine bone contain enough power to help me reach a breakthrough? Yi Zan muttered to himself. At present, he was still an early-stage supreme realm cultivator. After the various battles, his cultivation foundation had solidified and stabilized. As such, now was the best time to push forward and seek a breakthrough. Yi Zan immediately took action, and began to refine the remaining power in the divine bone, causing dense power to fill his body. FCK. Yi Zan was truly shocked. There was still this much left. Yi Zan heard crackling sounds all over his body, and he hurriedly activated his cultivation technique to control the power in his body, forcing it to be absorbed slowly. After a while, things began to calm down, and Yi Zan regained full control of the situation. As such, Yi Zan began to push forward with his cultivation. After some time, Yi Zan's body started to emit a dull sound. 623 Secluded Cultivation, Part 2. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Yi Zan's cultivation had reached the middle stage of the Supreme Realm after absorbing just part of the remaining power. However, this was not the end. As more and more power was absorbed, Yi Zan continued to get stronger. In the blink of an eye, 6 days had passed. At this moment, Yi Zan's entire body was emitting golden light, and if one looked carefully, they would find that it contained many mysterious runes floating around Yi Zan's body. These runes originated from the fiery phoenix's divine bone, and aided his cultivation significantly. His mastery of the fiery phoenix divine power had also reached new heights, and he actually did not dare to activate it at full power, as he was still unable to control such speed. Had he become the fastest person in the East Continent? On the 9th day, Yi Zan once again mobilized the power in his body and broke through to the late stage of the Supreme Realm. Bang! Bang! After the muffled sounds rang out, his body released an even more intense golden light. At this moment, Yi Zan seemed to have undergone a qualitative change. I've finally broken through to the late stage of the Supreme Realm, Yi Zan muttered to himself. His whole body seemed taut and full of energy, which felt amazing. Furthermore, he was now even closer to the ancient realm. His cultivation had improved significantly, and he had a deeper understanding of his divine powers. Even his sword Dao had become more powerful. Yi Zan felt that he would soon be able to display the third move of the Flora sword technique. After thinking about it for a moment, Yi Zan felt that it would take some time to completely consolidate his cultivation foundation. The one unfortunate thing was that the body refining technique was incomplete, and as such was only a heaven-grade cultivation method. However, Yi Zan believed that if he studied and mastered it, given his comprehension ability, he would be able to complete the body refining technique and turn it into a true blue immortal grade body refining technique. After planning out his next actions, Yi Zan ended his secluded cultivation and left the cultivation room. When he did, he stumbled upon a situation in the Cloud Sky Peaks garden. Stop right there. Not a single one of you can escape. All of you, stop right there. Yi Zan spotted a little girl riding a unicorn in the garden, waving a hammer in her hand and shouting at the white cranes in the distance. Seeing this, Yi Zan was at a loss. This little girl, even though no one was playing with her, could still entertain herself and even had a lot of fun. During Yi Zan's secluded cultivation, almost none of the beasts on Cloud Sky Peak had escaped her whims and fancies. Ever since Shang Yun came to Cloud Sky Peak, these beasts had never had a single day of peace. They were miserable and could only wail helplessly at the sky. Third sister, hurry up and come over here. It's time to learn how to read. Zhu Guoyu looked at Shang Yun helplessly. Over this period of time, she had been tortured quite a bit. She finally understood why Shang Yun had dropped out after only a single day at the study hall. Both her and Feng Xian's efforts had only resulted in Shang Yun learning 4 words. There was a long way to go before she could read, and it almost seemed like an impossible task. She was not interested in learning how to read at all. Whenever she was free, she would chase and play with these exotic beasts, or beat up other children. Thus, these 9 days had been extremely frustrating for Zhu Guoyu and Feng Xian. After Zhu Guoyu had just called for Shang Yun, she suddenly noticed her teacher's presence, and realized that he had ended his secluded cultivation. She quickly grabbed Shang Yun and brought her over to Yi Zan. Congratulations on completing your secluded cultivation, teacher. Shang Yun hugged Yi Zan's thigh and said with a smile, Teacher, can you send me back to the study hall? I've learned a new technique and want to try it out on those brats. I'll beat them up till their faces are swollen. Yi Zan quickly changed the topic and said, Yuner, didn't I tell you to learn how to read? Tell me how many words have you learned over the past few days? Upon hearing this, Shang Yun's eyes darted around as she answered with her head held high. He, teacher, I'm really smart. I've already learned 4 words in 9 days. That's fine, Yi Zan unconsciously answered and was about to praise her further when he did a double take. Only 4 words. Yi Zan was dumbfounded. 4 words in 9 days. She was shockingly unique in so many ways. It seemed that teaching her how to read was an impossible task. You only learned 4 words in 9 days. Are you sure you're not lying to me? Yi Zan asked in disbelief. However, Shang Yun shattered his hopes as she proudly replied, Of course I'm not lying. Teacher, am I not amazing? I learned 4 words. Yi Zan did not know whether to laugh or cry. How was he going to solve this problem? In any case, it seemed like the prudent course of action was to teach her to train her body first. 624 Are you going to cook me? Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So Zhu Guiyu came over at this time and said helplessly, Teacher, I've tried my best, but third sister is really struggling with this. Every time I turn around, she runs away from her lessons. Seeing Zhu Guiyu's helpless expression, Yi Zan did not know what to do. After a moment, Yi Zan realized that Feng Xian was missing, so he asked, Where did Xian go? Shang Yun piped up happily, Teacher, big sister Xian also entered secluded cultivation like you. It seems like forever since I last saw her. I wonder if she fell asleep as well. As soon as she heard those words, Zhu Guiyu smacked her on the head, which left her aggrieved. Did I say something wrong? Why did big sister beat me up? Teacher, Xian sensed an opportunity to break through, so she entered secluded cultivation. If everything goes well, she should break through to the void realm soon, Zhu Guiyu said. Yi Zan nodded in acknowledgement. Feng Xian had reached the peak of the materialization realm some time ago, so this was to be expected. Thinking this, Yi Zan turned to look at Zhu Guiyu and said, Guiyu, you've worked hard during this period of time. You should make the best use of your time to cultivate as well. The gathering is coming soon, so just let me take care of Yuner. You don't have to worry about this matter. Hearing this, Zhu Guiyu felt relieved. She had indeed wanted to focus on her cultivation, but because she was worried that Shang Yun would cause trouble, she had refrained from entering secluded cultivation. All right, teacher, I'll go and cultivate in seclusion. Then, she turned to Shang Yun and said, Third sister, don't be so naughty. You have to listen to your teacher and train seriously, understand? Shang Yun just nodded out of courtesy. Who knew what ran through that small brain of hers? Just as Zhu Guiyu was about to turn around and leave, she recalled something and quickly said, Teacher, I almost forgot. Han Sikong came by earlier and delivered the herbs you requested. She took out a storage pouch and handed it to Yi Zan. The money from the auction is also included here. The cost to purchase the herbs has already been deducted from the total sum. Yi Zan felt excited. After such a long time, the medicinal herbs that he had been waiting for had finally arrived. Holding the storage pouch, Yi Zan counted the amount of gold inside with his spiritual sense. There was almost 200 million taels of profound gold inside, which was a terrifying sum. If he gave this sum away to his disciples, how much would he earn in return? He would become a tycoon in the mystic world. Haha, this feeling was awesome. Yi Zan then counted the herbs, after which he smiled. With the help of these medicinal herbs, things are going much smoother. Yi Zan looked at Shang Yun and became very excited. It was time to help this little girl refine her body. Originally, Yi Zan wanted to use these herbs to teach his disciples alchemy, but he had not expected to take in a new disciple who was this young. As such, he had now decided to use these medicinal herbs on her instead. In any case, he would be able to obtain rewards from the system through this process as well. He made his way to the garden and took out the boundless cauldron from his storage space. After carefully picking out a few herbs, Yi Zan placed them into the boundless cauldron one by one according to a certain order. After adding a certain amount of spiritual liquid into the mix, Yi Zan used his spiritual power to close the lid. The temperature within the cauldron rose significantly as Yi Zan infused it with his spiritual power. Zhu Guiyu was watching all this happen with a confused look on her face. She did not understand what her teacher was up to. However, when she turned around, she spotted Shang Yun trying to escape, and quickly grabbed her and brought her over to Yi Zan. As Yizan regulated the infusion of spiritual power into the boundless cauldron, the medicinal herbs within it began to be refined and merged within the spiritual liquid. The sight of the boiling spiritual liquid sloshing around was a little scary, and Shang Yun's face had already turned pale. Yizan then said without thinking, "Yuner, you can get in now." Ah, Shang Yun was dumbfounded, and bean-sized beads of sweat dripped down her face. "Teacher, I'm sorry. I'll listen to you from now on and won't be naughty anymore. Please don't cook me and eat me, okay?" She was already scared out of her wits and hugged Yizan and cried, looking very pitiful. Yizan was amused by this. This little girl actually knew the meaning of the word fear. He then said nonchalantly, "Don't you want to be invincible among your peers? This concoction will make you stronger. I'm not going to cook and eat you. You just need to sit inside and let the medicinal power of the herbs and spiritual liquid refine your body. After this, you'll definitely become stronger." After hearing this, Shang Yun wiped her tears away, but still asked warily, "Teacher, are you sure you're not lying to me?" "Of course not. I never lie," Yizan said with a smile. "Today, I'm going to teach you a body refining technique that's quite special. If you can cultivate it to the point of mastery, you'll be invincible among your peers. How about it?" Without waiting for Yizan to finish, Shang Yun immediately dove into the boundless cauldron, after which a squealing voice was heard. "Oh www. It's burning me to death." Yizan was dumbfounded. Was she really dead set on becoming invincible among her peers? She dove right in without thinking twice. 625 Body Refining. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So Teacher, hurry up and tell me how to absorb the medicinal effects. It's hot in here. However, Yizan did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked around the boundless cauldron to check the medicinal solution. It seemed that IoT was working, and constantly tempering Shang Yun's body. Don't be anxious. Keep your body in a relaxed state. Calm your heart to feel the effects of the medicinal solution, and then absorb them into your body. After saying that, Yizan kept a close eye on Shang Yun's condition. If he detected anything wrong, he would immediately pull her out of the cauldron. As this was only her first time refining her body, he did not make the solution very concentrated, as too much of a good thing was a bad thing. After hearing Yizan's instructions, Shang Yun relaxed her body and mind. She closed her eyes and tried to sense the medicinal effects. However, the solution was still quite strong, and caused her a fair bit of pain. Despite this, she was determined to endure so that she could become invincible among her peers. Yizan admired her perseverance. This was a trait that every powerful expert had to have. After some time passed, Shang Yun opened her eyes, and her body unleashed violent power. Yizan was surprised. She had already reached the foundation establishment realm. The levels of body refining were similar to cultivation realms. The only difference was that the first realm was different. The initial realm of body refiners was called the foundation establishment realm, while for cultivators, it was called the mystic meridian realm. After Yizan examined Shang Yun's body for changes, he took out another spiritual herb from his storage space. This herb contained a significant amount of medicinal power. He added the spiritual herb into the solution, and released a wave of his spiritual power into Shang Yun's body to help her refine it. At the same time, he was about to teach her the body refining technique. Yuner, watch and memorize the flow of spiritual power in your body. This is how you'll be able to refine your body in the future. Shang Yun nodded, indicating that she understood. Then, she began to carefully sense the flow of Yizan's spiritual power in her body as he circulated it according to the body refining technique. A single full cycle was all it took to incite a change within Shang Yun's body, which was quite frightening, even to Yizan. Being the reincarnation of an expert isn't just for show, He glanced at Shang Yun and asked, "Have you memorized it?" As she was in pain, she could only nod to express her affirmation. "All right then. In order to make sure you've got it right, I will circulate it a few more times. After that, you'll have to start doing it on your own." As soon as he finished speaking, Yizan once again circulated his spiritual power through her body a few times, and eventually retracted it. It seemed that despite her lack of aptitude when it came to learning how to read, she did not have the same problems when it came to cultivation, though it could be argued that the former was more about laziness than anything else. Looking at the level of talent of his precious disciple, Yizan was truly shocked. Perhaps this little girl did not need to know how to read in order to cultivate. After Yi Zan withdrew his spiritual power, Shang Yun began to circulate the spiritual power in her body that had been refined earlier according to the same route that Yi Zan had shown her just now. All it took was a few cycles before Shang Yun could clearly sense that she had become stronger, which left her a little dumbfounded. Her lips trembled, but there were no words to describe what she was feeling. Zhu Guoyu was watching this unfold in amazement. Third sister is really talented. It's only been 5 minutes since teacher started teaching her, but she's already reached the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. My cultivation progress pales in comparison. She still remembered that she had broken through one level within a day, but Shang Yun had gone even further, and broken through in 5 minutes. This was not the end. The medicinal effects of the solution had still not been completely refined, and Shang Yun was constantly absorbing them into her body. Zhu Guoyu felt that she had to work harder. Otherwise, this junior sister of hers would catch up to her at some point. That would be really embarrassing. Thinking this, she immediately bid farewell to Yi Zan and left to enter secluded cultivation. Since she no longer had to teach Shang Yun how to read, she had to seize this opportunity to cultivate and become stronger. Woo-woo. It hurts. Shang Yun could not take it anymore. She shouted and jumped out of the cauldron, running around the garden. Seeing such a funny scene, Yi Zan laughed. 626 Aim higher. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. After running around the garden, Shang Yun grew tired and laid down on the ground, panting heavily. Yi Zan squatted down next to her and examined her carefully. He discovered that her cultivation had stabilized at the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. It seemed that Shang Yun was quite gifted when it came to body refining. If she was allowed to absorb even more precious spiritual herbs in the future, would she not advance even faster? Yi Zan was looking forward to this. Meanwhile, she looked at her teacher and smiled smugly. Teacher, can I be considered invincible among my peers now? Yi Zan shrugged in response. She really was obsessed with this title. Ahem, no, not yet. Becoming invincible among your peers is not something that can be done overnight. There's one thing you have to be clear about. The world is very big, and there are many experts who are your age. If you want to be considered invincible, you have to cultivate diligently. Shang Yun was not discouraged by this, and stood up immediately, indicating that she wanted to continue. All right, teacher, I understand. Don't worry, I will definitely become invincible among my peers. As soon as she finished speaking, she jumped into the boundless cauldron again to absorb the remaining medicinal solution. Yi Zan was very pleased to see this. At the same time, a system notification rang out. Ding! Congratulations! As you have given your disciple a number of spiritual herbs, you have received a stock of earth root grass and other spiritual herbs as a critical reward. Yi Zan was pretty happy when he heard this, but also a little disappointed. He had received higher grade spiritual herbs, but had been hoping for immortal grade ones. In any case, he would take things step by step, and the stock of earth root grass was very suitable for Shang Yun as well. It seemed that the method of internal and external cultivation could be put into practice perfectly. After examining the herbs given by the system, Yi Zan checked on Shang Yun's condition again. As time passed, the sun gradually set, and the medicinal solution in the boundless cauldron became a pool of clear water. It was obvious that the medicinal power inside had been fully absorbed by Shang Yun. In turn, she had reached the advanced stage of the foundation establishment realm. Yi Zan took a deep breath and carefully examined her body. He discovered that her strength had actually reached the 100,000 jin mark. Hee, she's really awesome. My disciple is indeed different from the rest. Yi Zan was secretly overjoyed, but his face was still very calm. All right, you don't have to soak in it anymore. Upon hearing this, Shang Yun emerged from the boundless cauldron. However, when she flopped out of the cauldron, she failed to control her strength and fell to the ground. Whoa, when did I become so strong? As soon as she finished speaking, she threw a few punches to test out her body's condition. Her punches generated strong gusts of wind, and shattered a large rock that was not far away. She was dumbfounded when she saw this, and immediately began to stretch and move her body to get used to her current strength. She hugged Yi Zan's leg excitedly and said with a smile, Teacher, I'm amazing. I must be invincible among my peers now, right? I'm 100% confident that I can beat that little brat Lihi into a pulp with one slap if I fight him again. Hee, teacher, why don't you bring me to him? I'll punch him once, and then I'll punch him again and again until he goes poof. Yi Zan sighed. He said with a straight face, Yuner, you're not allowed to do such a thing. You and Li Yi are both fellow disciples of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect. You are not allowed to grievously injure your fellow disciples, otherwise I'll punish you heavenly. Zhang Yun was shocked when she heard this, and could only reply weakly, all right, teacher, I got it. However, if you really can't help but beat him up, it's not a big deal. The important thing is to control your strength and not hurt him badly. The corners of Yi Zan's mouth curved up slightly as he said these words. Shang Yun's face brightened up. Teacher, you're not lying to me, right? Can I really give that stinky brat a good beating? When have I ever lied to you? However, there's no need for you to hit Li Yi. It's not challenging at all. Shang Yun, as a disciple of Cloud Sky Peak, we have to aim high. If you really want to fight, let me introduce you to someone. Not long ago, your senior sister beat up Gao Tianyu of Hidden Sword Peak. You should try and emulate her. Train diligently and see if you can beat him up too. Yinyan's eyes seemed to light up after hearing that. She raised her head and puffed out her chest as she spoke with certainty. Teacher, don't worry. I will definitely train seriously and beat Gao Tianyu up as soon as possible. As she spoke, she did not forget to punch the air a few times with her small fists. She looked very confident. Even her own senior sister had already beaten Gao Tianyu up, so she had to follow in her senior sister's footsteps and beat that brat up as well. Yi Zan felt slightly guilty when he saw this. My apologies, senior brother Gao, but my disciple likes to fight too much and needs a target. Unfortunately, Gao Tianyu is the perfect candidate to train her. 627 It's my turn now. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. At Hidden Sword Peak, Gao Tianyu, who had been immersed in cultivation, suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He had a bad feeling. What's going on? Why do I feel like this? Has something gone wrong with my cultivation? Gao Tianyu racked his head to try and figure it out, but to no avail. After some time, he gave up. In any case, his father should be able to protect him from such unknown dangers, right? What could possibly happen? That's enough, Yuner. Seeing her dance around in joy, Yi Zan had a feeling that he had done something bad. It was fine though, right? You've reached the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm now, and will be able to break through and reach the Divine Mystic realm soon. For now, go and rest. At the same time, familiarize yourself with the flow of spiritual power I taught you earlier. Once you have done that, circulate your spiritual power according to that flow a few times. It will be helpful for your cultivation. You need a solid foundation to ensure that your cultivation path will be smooth. Do you understand? Quote. Shang Yun was stunned. She did not really understand much of what he was talking about, but understood that her master would not lie to her, so following his instructions would be in her best interests. After nodding her head, Shang Yun ran away again. Shortly after, Zhu Guiyu felt very aggrieved. She had completely immersed herself in cultivation, but had been jolted out of her state of immersion by Shang Yun to accompany the latter to catch some beasts at the rear of the mountain. Left with no other choice, Zhu Guiyu could only tag along, and decided to wait until night fell to cultivate again. After Shang Yun left, Yi Zan put away the boundless cauldron and returned to the Cloud Sky Palace. Next, it was his turn to refine his body. What kind of changes will happen when I practice both internal and external cultivation? Yi Zan muttered to himself. Ordinary people were already satisfied cultivating spiritual power, as refining one's body required a huge amount of resources, and even had requirements for the cultivator's talent. However, if they could achieve this, his strength would be able to improve greatly, and he would be able to bridge the gaps in cultivation levels to fight stronger opponents. Yi Zan believed that he could succeed in both internal and external cultivation. After all, his talent was basically unparalleled thanks to the system, which also gave him an immense amount of materials and heavenly treasures to practice body refining cultivation. Since he had already made his choice, Yi Zan did not hesitate and began to concoct his body refining solution. Unlike Shang Yun's, he only used high-grade ones, including the earth root grass, as he could tolerate a higher concentration medicinal solution. After mixing many herbs together, the solution turned dark green. Once it was completely mixed, Yi Zan used his spiritual sense to release the full medicinal power of each herb. Then, he got into the cauldron. Moments later, a vast amount of spiritual energy surged into his body. Yi Zan felt his skin burning, making him feel indescribable pain. He quickly adapted to it, and then began to activate the body refining technique to absorb the energy into his body. Only a few seconds had passed, yet Yizan had already reached the Foundation Establishment realm, and was advancing rapidly. Soon, he reached the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm. Following that, he took another step forward, and broke through to the Divine Mystic realm. Whoa! Yizan was shocked by his own speed of progress, which had exceeded Shang Yun's. Well, perhaps him already being an advanced stage Supreme Realm cultivator had something to do with it. Either way, the end result was the same. After absorbing one heavenly treasure after another, he broke through to the materialization realm in just over an hour. However, that was not enough. Yizan's goal was for his body refining cultivation to reach the same level as his spiritual cultivation. Although this would have been nothing more than a pipe dream to others, it was completely achievable for Yizan. By morning, all of the medicinal power within the solution had been absorbed and refined by him, and he had reached the void realm. Then, he got out of the cauldron and circulated his spiritual power, drying his clothes instantly. After carefully examining the condition of his body, he decided to increase the strength of the solution the next time. Thinking this, the corners of Yizan's mouth curled up slightly as he arrived outside the Cloud Sky Palace. At this moment, the sun had just risen, and he could see Zhu Guoyu sitting close to the water cloud fruit tree, cultivating. Yizan slowly approached and smiled. Yuyu. Hearing Yizan, Zhu Guoyu gradually opened her eyes, and then got up and bowed. Good morning, teacher. Yizan waved his hand at her, and then examined her cultivation level, after which his smile grew wider. Middle stage of the void realm, and your cultivation foundation has been solidified. Very good. This disciple of his had been very serious in her cultivation and had never slacked off. After thinking for a moment, Yizan said, there are less than 30 days till the gathering. Yuyu, you will represent Cloud Sky Peak. Keep up the good work. Hearing this, Zhu Guoyu nodded. She naturally wanted to do her best. Yizan was her benefactor and savior. If possible, she never wanted to disappoint his expectations. 628 Increased Potency. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So far, the only geniuses that Zhu Guoyu knew of were Mu Baiken and the Reincarnation Fairy. Teacher, you don't have to worry about this matter. I've already made preparations and will bring honor to Cloud Sky Peak, Zhu Guoyu said with a determined expression. Seeing her confident expression, Yizan patted her head and carefully removed the leaves that had fallen on her head as she was cultivating. All right, you've always made me proud. Just remember not to be complacent and get yourself hurt, he said softly. This world is huge, and there are many geniuses you don't know of. Always cultivate knowing that there might be someone stronger than you out there. The gathering is the best place to experience this. Geniuses from all over the world will be there, and you will get to compete with them. Zhu Guoyu nodded her head. She had never been arrogant, and understood that her potential might be lacking in comparison to other geniuses, but it mattered not. She had the best teacher in history. This was her trump card, and also the source of her confidence. All right, please bring Shang Yun over here. As soon as he finished speaking, Yizan began to make another vat of body refining solution. In order to advance his own body refining cultivation, he needed the system's rewards, which he could only obtain from helping Shang Yun with her own body refining cultivation. Zhu Guoyu only wanted to cultivate the sword Dao, and Feng Xian was not suited for body refining cultivation. Therefore, only this lively third disciple of his would be able to help him with this. The only regretful thing was that Shang Yun still did not know how to read. Sigh. While Yizan was deep in thought, Zhu Guoyu arrived with a sleepy-looking Shang Yun. Big sister, why did you drag me here in such a hurry? I haven't even woken up properly yet, Shang Yun said unhappily. She had completely exhausted herself yesterday, and really wanted to sleep in. Waking up at sunrise was the last thing on her mind. Zhu Guoyu simply replied patiently, third sister, morning is the best time to cultivate. Since you've already decided to become a cultivator, how can you just laze around and sleep? Don't you want to be invincible among your peers? Pull yourself together. When she heard her favorite catchphrase, it was as if she had been injected with a stimulant, and she suddenly became energetic. Hee, very well, senior sister. Don't you worry, I will definitely become invincible among my peers. Then, she walked over to Yizan and asked with a puzzled face, Teacher, what should I do today? Continue to soak in the cauldron like yesterday. The only difference is that the herbs in the solution today are much more potent than yesterday. If you can absorb all of their medicinal power, then I'll allow you to have fun for a few days, Yizan replied with a smile. The herbs he had used to make the body refining solution this time were extraordinary. If she could refine all of their medicinal power, she would easily be able to break through and reach the materialization realm. Yizan's confidence in her potential was the reason why he had decided to increase the potency of the solution. If she really succeeded, it would be even easier for her to cultivate in the future. It was much harder to practice body refining cultivation as opposed to spiritual cultivation. If they were lacking talent, resources, or even the ability to concoct solutions, the journey would be an arduous one. This was the difference between spiritual cultivation and body refining cultivation. Yizan intended for Xiangyun to cultivate both, but first she had to learn how to read. With her level of talent, it was achievable. Xiangyun's eyes seemed to light up when she heard that she could go out and play for a few days. "Teacher, you're not lying, are you?" she asked expectantly. Yizan rubbed her head and said, "You know that I wouldn't lie about such things. If you really manage to do it, I will honor my words." All right, it was just a pile of herbs. She had already refined some yesterday, so she would definitely be able to do it again easily today. Seeing her confident expression, Yizan could not help but smile and think to himself, "Try your best, but don't cry later." In this cauldron containing the body refining solution, Yizan had added in 2 high-grade spiritual herbs and other miscellaneous herbs. The potency had risen significantly as a result, and the temperature also rose sharply. Before Yizan could warn her, she jumped into the boundless cauldron. In the blink of an eye, she jumped right out again. "Woo woo woo, why is it so hot?" she shouted as she ran around the garden, trying to cool off. After realizing that it did not work, Yin-Yun jumped into the pond. Seeing this scene, Zhu Yuyu was startled. Was body refining cultivation so painful? Fortunately, she was literate. 629 proven correct. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. After soaking in the pond, her body temperature finally dropped, and she looked at Yizan pitifully. "Teacher, can I not soak in that cauldron?" Seeing her miserable appearance, Yizan pretended to be a little disappointed. He sighed and said, "Sigh, if you really don't want to, then forget it. I'm afraid that you won't be invincible among your peers in the future." Hearing this, Zhu Yuyu could not help but burst out laughing. When she realized that she had lost her composure, she quickly covered her mouth. Teacher really knew how to handle her. Not surprisingly, after hearing Yizan's words, Xiangyun was completely won over. "No way, I will be invincible among my peers. No one can take that title from me." With that, she clenched her small fists and walked over to the cauldron again. She reached out to test the temperature inside and shrank back. However, when she remembered her teacher's words, she closed her eyes and jumped into the cauldron again. Her face immediately flushed red from the heat. Unable to bear the pain, she gripped the rim of the cauldron tightly and gritted her teeth. At this time, Yizan was also carefully observing her condition. Relax your body and mind. Don't try to resist this power. Instead, absorb it into your body. Hearing this, she immediately obeyed and absorbed the power according to the circulation flow route that Yizan had taught her yesterday. Stimulated by this power, a golden lotus gradually appeared around her body. Seeing this, Yizan frowned. Something unexpected had happened. The moment the golden lotus appeared, her body started to emit a terrifying suction force, continuously absorbing the medicinal power in the cauldron. In just a short while, she absorbed half of it. At this moment, a faint golden light appeared around her, enveloping her entire body. As time passed, the golden light that surrounded her body shimmered, and then dissipated, revealing a much older-looking Xiangyun with long hair. Zhu Yuyu and Yizan were both dumbfounded when they saw this. At this moment, she seemed to have transformed into an unparalleled beauty. She sat there alone and looked into the distance, giving off an extremely lonely feeling. "Teacher, what's going on?" After regaining her senses, Zhu Yuyu immediately asked Yizan. At that moment, the fairy seemed to look at Zhu Yuyu. The moment their eyes met, Zhu Yuyu immediately fell into a dazed state. Although she could roughly see the fairy's figure, she could not make out the details at all. It was as if there was a fog blocking her face. At this moment, Zhu Yuyu also understood that this fairy's power was beyond her imagination. If she had not been related to Xiangyun, she was afraid that the simple glance she had just seen would have injured her severely. When she thought of this, Zhu Yuyu felt a sense of fear. How unexpected. Junior sister's background is so amazing. No one would have been able to imagine that this cute little girl would become such a terrifying figure in the future. Yi Zan rubbed Zhuge Yueyu's head and transferred some spiritual power into her body to help her get over the shock. Yueyu, he said, you can't tell anyone about what you just saw. Do you understand? Zhuge Yueyu nodded with a serious expression and said, Teacher, I understand. All right, you can go and cultivate now. Leave this to me. After saying that, Yi Zan looked at the figure again. Zhuge Yueyu glanced at her master before returning to her room to cultivate. At this moment, Yi Zan was so excited that he could not speak. However, his expression was still very calm as he looked at the figure from afar. This must be the great expert who reincarnated as Shang Yun. My guess was right. I'm really looking forward to the day when Yuna regains the memories of her previous life. Things are getting more interesting. The boundless cauldron suddenly trembled, and released a terrifying amount of energy. Seeing this, Yi Zan reached out and suppressed the energy. After a while, Shang Yun's face turned even redder, and white smoke rose from her body as her cultivation level began to rise. In the blink of an eye, he had already broken through to the divine mystic realm, and it was not stopping there. Then, she broke through to the materialization realm. Now, the strength of her punch could probably reach about 1 million jin. 630 New Life Goal. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So Yi Zan was stunned and very excited. My disciple is really not bad. As expected of someone with the potential to become a sealed immortal realm expert. With this girl's current strength, ordinary materialization cultivators would be no match for her. If she were to learn some powerful offensive techniques, even a void realm cultivator would find it difficult to defeat her. However, to learn these powerful techniques, she first needed to learn how to read. After some time passed, Shang Yun suddenly took a deep breath. The body refining solution in the boundless cauldron had turned clear. After slowly opening her eyes, Shang Yun immediately looked at Yi Zan with a smile. She then got out of the cauldron. Hee, teacher, now can I be considered invincible among my peers? Hearing this, Yi Zan laughed and replied, you're not far off. Next time, I'll teach you a few offensive techniques. At that point, you should be considered invincible among your peers. But there's one thing I have to tell you. Being invincible among your peers is no big deal. After all, you won't be fighting your peers all the time. In the mystic world, you will often have to fight those from the older generation. You must become stronger so that you can fight every enemy you encounter. It's precisely because of this that you have to work hard now. Shang Yun was stunned by his words. She lowered her head and started thinking as if this was a life-altering revelation. I should become invincible, not only among my peers, but in the world as well. Her eyes lit up as she muttered to herself. This was her new life goal. Okay then, I will become invincible and defeat all of my enemies, she clenched her small fist and said solemnly. Looking at this scene, Yi Zan was content. Fortunately, this little girl was still young. When she grew up and experienced more things, it would be impossible to deceive her. That's all for today. Go back to your room and rest. If there's anything else, we can discuss it tomorrow, Yi Zan said after thinking for a moment. Unknowingly, the sun was about to set. In general, today was quite a fulfilling day. All right then, teacher. Bye-bye. As soon as she finished speaking, Shang Yun ran off like the wind. As she ran, she seemed to have thought of something, and paused for a moment before rushing back to the rear of the mountain. The beasts living there were probably going to suffer again. Now that Shang Yun's cultivation had gotten off to a great start, it would be time to teach the other two disciples alchemy from tomorrow onward. After thinking for a while, Yi Zan put the boundless cauldron back into his storage space before returning to the Cloud Sky Palace. At this moment, the sun was slowly setting in the west, and the warm and comfortable sun shone on the entire Cloud Sky Peak. However, amidst this beautiful scenery, there was a little girl running around, chasing the beasts and making them jump in fright. At that moment, the system's notification rang out. Ding! As you have given your disciple a number of top-grade herbs, you have received a stock of photinia grass and a portion of precious spiritual herbs. Nice, Yi Zan muttered to himself happily. Yesterday, he was still complaining that the herbs he received were not amazing, but his luck today was much better. The system really was a cheat-like existence. With the help of the photinia grass, his body-refining cultivation would be able to make great progress again, and he might be able to reach the heaven realm. Honestly, he was greatly anticipating the moment when he reached the supreme realm in body-refining cultivation. At that time, with the strength of both internal and external cultivation, Yi Zan would probably face no obstacles while breaking through to the sealed immortal realm. Thinking this, Yi Zan brought up his status information panel. Host. Yi Zan. Cultivation. Supreme Realm, Spiritual Cultivation, Void Realm, Body Refining Cultivation. Skills. Boundless Palm Technique. Fiery Phoenix Technique. Flora Sword Technique. Treasures. God's Sword, Cloud Heaven Sword, Rainbow Robe, Boundless Cauldron. Top Grade Immortal Treasurer. Chaos Immortal Peach X1. System Evaluation. Very good. Your score is 99.9. Host. You've developed quite well recently. Looking at the system's evaluation, Yi Zan's face instantly darkened. Was he that bad in the past? Now, Yi Zan still had to improve his body refining cultivation level, and then he could prepare to break through to the ancient realm. However, it would have to wait for the Divine Seal Peaks gathering to conclude. There were only less than 30 days remaining, and he still needed to reach the advanced stage of the Supreme Realm first. After thinking for a long time, Yi Zan started to concoct the body refining solution, and added the Photinia grass into it. 631 Vanishing Shadow. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. The moment the Photinia grass was added to the solution, a terrifying amount of spiritual energy swept out, which was quickly suppressed by Yi Zan. Even though the solution was boiling at this point, he did not hesitate to enter the cauldron, and waves of energy were transmitted and absorbed into his body. The next morning, Yi Zan slowly opened his eyes, and an extremely terrifying aura instantly swept out. I've finally broken through to the heaven realm. His prediction had been correct. The addition of the Photinia grass was enough to fuel his breakthrough to the heaven realm. Now, he had to find and obtain even more precious herbs to continue advancing his body refining cultivation. That being said, Yi Zan still had not used the Chaos Immortal Peach yet. Yi Zan slowly climbed out of the cauldron, activated his spiritual power, and instantly dried his clothes. After doing all this, Yi Zan went over to the water cloud fruit tree and crushed some of the herbs that were not useful to him, then sprinkled the liquid over it. Moments later, a dazzling light radiated from the tree, and the spiritual energy of the entire cloud sky peak became denser. Zhu Guoyu and Feng Xian, who were still immersed in their cultivation, also noticed this and they rushed out at the same time. After seeing that it was Yi Zan, they immediately greeted him. Good morning, teacher. After saying this, Zhu Guoyu immediately went to wake Shang Yun up. The three of them stood in front of Yi Zan and waited quietly for his instructions. Yi Zan looked at Feng Xian at this moment, and then a smile appeared on his face. You've actually broken through to the void realm. Very good. She had indeed made good use of the precious bone he had given her. However, once the remaining power within the precious bone was exhausted, her cultivation speed would slow down. Xian. Yes, teacher. Yi Zan calmly took out an ancient book from his spatial pouch and handed it over to Feng Xian. I said before that I would teach you the method to use the God Saber, so I'll give it to you now. This ancient book was obtained by Chief Tian Zan in a secret realm. It's a heaven-grade divine power, and its name is Vanishing Shadow. Once you master this divine power, you will be able to instantly appear in front of your enemies and take their heads. With the assistance of the powerful flames you can ignite, your attack power will be terrifying. I'm afraid that even your senior sister won't be able to take the attack head-on. If you want to master this divine power, you have to properly comprehend the power of space, which is not an easy thing. It's also the reason I didn't teach it to you before the Void Realm. After hearing these words, Feng Xian excitedly received and flipped through the ancient book. Even a casual glance through its contents was enough to tell her that this divine power was extraordinary. Thanks, teacher. You're the best. All right, there's no need to be so excited. After all, it's not easy to master this divine power. Work hard. There are less than 30 days left before the gathering. Perhaps the divine power will come in useful at that time, Yi Zan said while rubbing Feng Xian's head. When Chief Tian Zan left, he left Yi Zan with many treasures and techniques. However, at that time, Yi Zan was pretty useless as a cultivator, so he could not make good use of them. Thankfully, he now had 3 disciples of his own, so they could finally be put to use. It would also allow Yi Zan to earn even more usable items from the system. All right, teacher. I'll definitely cultivate seriously and won't let you down, Feng Xian said confidently. Her heart was already blooming with joy. Even though she did not like to fight, she also wanted to become stronger. She wanted to become stronger so that she could protect the people she cared about instead of being protected every time. Now, she even had a junior sister. Usually, Her senior sister would protect her, so now, it was time for her to protect her junior sister. Teacher, can you also teach me a powerful divine power? Seeing that her senior sister could actually learn such a powerful technique, Xiangyun also did not want to be left behind and hugged Yizan's thigh. Looking at her hopeful and pitiful eyes, Yizan felt a little embarrassed and said, "Cough, cough, Yuner, it's not that I don't want to teach you these techniques. It's just that, you don't even know how to read, so how can you learn a divine power like this? If you really want to learn a powerful divine power, you should learn how to read first. I'll definitely teach you then. How about it?" Quote. 632. Is that yours? Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Yizan still wanted Xiangyun to learn how to read. After all, it was a basic life skill. Without it, she would not be able to embark on the path of spiritual cultivation, which would really be a waste of her talent. However, the problem of learning how to read was really a big problem. No matter how many times he had asked her, she had not listened. What could he do? Teacher, are you serious? If I really can read all of the words, will you teach me these powerful techniques? She asked Yizan with anticipation, and then looked at the ancient book in her second sister's hand with envy. That's for sure. The day you can recognize all of the words, I'll immediately teach you an amazing technique. How about it? Yizan said confidently. He was even thinking about whether he should prepare a few gifts for Elder Huang so that he could teach her how to read. As long as this little girl was willing to seriously learn how to read, Yizan would be willing to do almost anything. All right then, I'll do it. Once I'm done learning, you have to keep your promise, teacher. Xiangyun walked over and kept shaking Yizan's arm, wanting to get his confirmation. He rubbed her head in glee. It seemed that there was hope. All right, I'll definitely keep my promise, all right. When you're done, I can teach you anything that you want to learn, as long as I know the technique. All right, teacher, I definitely won't let you down, Xiangyun patted her chest and said. She could already envision herself splitting the earth apart with a casual hammer strike using a divine power. At that point, no enemy would be able to withstand a single strike of her hammer. She would beat them until they cried for their mothers. Ha ha ha. Thinking this, she suddenly laughed proudly, and her heart was full of joy. Looking at her smiling face, Zhu Yuyu could not help but feel a little worried for those who offended her junior sister. In any case, the fact that she was going to learn to read seriously was a good thing. Yizan then said, "You two wait for a moment here. I'll send Xiangyun to the study hall first." Understood, teacher. The two of them watched Yizan bring Xiangyun away. Zhu Yuyu then asked Feng Xian hesitantly, "Xian, do you think that our third sister will be able to learn how to read properly this time?" "I'm not sure." Feng Xian recalled the time when she had tried to teach Xiangyun how to read. This little girl was not someone an ordinary person could teach. She seemed to be full of curiosity about everything, except reading. It would be an uphill task. Zhu Yuyu was helpless too, and she could only hope that Xiangyun would really apply herself seriously this time, or at the very least, stay out of trouble. If she still did not succeed this time, then it was probably a hopeless endeavor. Soon, Yizan arrived at the study hall with Xiangyun in tow. "Elder Huang, don't worry. This time, she won't cause you any more trouble. She'll definitely learn to read. Even if you don't believe her, you can believe me, okay?" Outside the door of the church, Yizan patted his chest and gave his word of honor. In order to give this girl a chance to learn how to read, Yizan was willing to trade away his pride. However, after experiencing this incident, Elder Huang was extremely afraid. No matter what he was told, he was unwilling to teach Xiangyun again. "Junior brother Yi, please do me a favor and let me off. If I let this girl mess around a few more times, my bones will be broken by her. I've taught students for so long, but this is the first time I've met someone as fierce as your disciple. I really can't take it," Elder Huang said with a lingering sense of fear. He was adamant about his decision. His life was more important. Seeing that Elder Huang was still against it, Yizan did not panic. The corners of his mouth curved up slightly and he said with a smile, "Elder Huang, are you sure you won't allow it?" "I'm sure," Elder Huang replied firmly. At that moment, Yizan took out an extremely precious treasure from his storage space. When he saw this treasure, Elder Huang's jaw dropped. The FCK. It was a ruler that was emitting a brilliant light. Just by looking at the aura, one could tell that this treasure was of the highest quality. Although Elder Huang was an elder of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect, he was not strong. He only had a certain status because he taught the children. This was the first time Elder Huang had seen a precious treasure like this up close. To him, this treasure was fatally attractive. Yi Zan gently swung the ruler a few times, and then threw it directly in front of Elder Huang. Oh dear, Elder Huang, why did you accidentally drop your treasure on the ground? Elder Huang immediately came back to his senses. Oh my god. He actually did this. Elder Huang rolled his eyes, but after seeing that there was no one else around, he smiled brightly. Ahem, it's really mine. I'll pick it up immediately. After picking up the ruler with lightning speed, Elder Huang looked at Shang Yun, who was standing behind Yi Zan. Ahem, junior brother Yi, I've thought about it seriously just now. Although your little girl is quite naughty, she can still be taught. Seeing that she is junior brother Yi's disciple, I will allow her to return to the study hall to learn again. However, whether she can learn well or not will depend on her own efforts. Elder Huang said this with some hesitation, but the bright smile on his face had already betrayed him. 633 Heaven-Splitting Sword. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Seeing Elder Huang's expression, Yi Zan just smiled and then took out a herb from his storage space, which stunned the former once again. FCK. Alright, I get it already. Junior brother Yi, you don't have to worry at all. Just leave this little girl to me. I'll definitely teach her well. There won't be any accidents with me around, okay? Old Huang patted his chest confidently. Seeing this, Yi Zan was relieved. Sure enough, no matter where one was, there were some principles that were surprisingly consistent. Bribery was the sincerest form of flattery. These two things were just common things to Yi Zan, but it was different for Elder Huang. They were truly rare treasures. Shang Yun had successfully rejoined the study hall, so everything was good. Once again, he threw the herb on the ground and said, "Oh my god, Elder Huang, why are you always so careless? You actually lost a herb again." Hearing this, Elder Huang immediately burst out laughing. Hee, junior brother Yi, I've embarrassed myself. I'm already getting older, so it's normal for me to forget a few things. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Huang immediately picked up the herb on the ground. He was so excited that he was unable to speak. He really did not expect Yi Zan to be so generous. In comparison, the other chiefs seemed stingy. Cloud Sky Peak was indeed extraordinary and overbearing. Junior brother Yi, just listen to me and don't worry at all. Just leave this matter to me. You can go and do your own things with peace of mind, Elder Huang said with confidence. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Yi Zan's face. Then he turned around to look at Shang Yun and said, Yuner, you have to be obedient this time, understand? You can't cause any more trouble. Once you learn how to read, I'll naturally teach you some powerful techniques. Hearing this, Shang Yun smiled happily and nodded. Teacher, I understand. I'll definitely learn to read seriously this time. Elder Huang, hurry up and bring me inside to learn how to read. After saying this, Shang Yun dragged Elder Huang by his clothes and entered the study hall. Seeing this, Elder Huang was dumbfounded. Could it be that this little girl had really changed completely? Why did she want to learn how to read so badly? It seemed that she was not a hopeless case after all. If it was like this, then there was nothing to worry about. Thus, Elder Huang smiled happily. Elder Huang waved at Yi Zan and then led Shang Yun in. Just before she entered, Shang Yun did not forget to turn around and wave goodbye to Yi Zan, which filled him with hope. He hoped that she would be able to succeed this time. Before he left, Yi Zan first secretly peeked inside to see if she was seriously learning how to read. Only then did he dare to return to Cloud Sky Peak with a peace of mind. At that moment, the system's notification arrived. Ding! As you have gifted your disciple a heaven-grade divine power, Vanishing Shadow, you have received a 10,000x critical reward. Ding! As you have given Elder Huang a treasured ruler and a rare herb, you have received a 10,000x critical reward. Elder Huang thought that he had definitely made a fortune by accepting these two treasures. However, thanks to the system, the biggest beneficiary was Yi Zan himself. Congratulations! The host has obtained the secret technique, the Heaven-Splitting Sword. Congratulations! The host has obtained a rare spiritual weapon, Inferno Ruler, and a middle-grade spirit herb, Sky Heart Flower. The reward that shocked Yi Zan was the secret technique. Even the name itself spoke volumes of how powerful it was. Once he read its description, he was even more thrilled. This secret skill technique could even cross space and take the enemy's head from 10,000 meters away. It was a showy skill that was simply perfect for him. Yi Zan examined it carefully again and found that this secret technique's power was also not to be underestimated. It could even be compared to the third move of his Flora Sword technique, and could even target those enemies with extremely strong spatial capabilities. On the whole, this is a very good move, Yi Zan muttered to himself with a smile. Exchanging a heaven-grade divine power for this secret technique was simply a great deal. Ding! Do you want to learn the heaven-splitting sword now? After hearing this prompt, Yi Zan smiled and said, yes. As soon as he finished speaking, bursts of red light appeared in Yi Zan's mind, and divine text and insights were imprinted into his mind one after another. With Yi Zan's amazing comprehension ability, he gained a rough grasp of it in just a few moments. After all, Yi Zan's talent in terms of the sword Dao was unfathomably high. While Yi Zan was immersed in his state of comprehension, Aulay arrived at the study hall and stared at him with wide eyes. 634 Learning Alchemy Part 1. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Junior brother Yi, what are you doing here? Aulay looked at Yi Zan doubtfully. Why was his junior brother foolishly laughing in public? Hearing Aulay's words, Yi Zan finally came back to his senses. He had indeed been too happy just now. Haha, it's nothing much. I just brought my disciple over here to learn how to read. I'll be heading back soon. What did you just say? After hearing that the little girl from Cloud Sky Peak had actually come back here, Aulay was really surprised. He immediately glanced inside, frowned, and began to think. The next moment, he called out to the group of children from his own peak to come outside, thinking of hiding them first. They could learn to read and write at any time, but if stuck around that little girl, they would soon be beaten up. Senior brother Ao, what's the meaning of this? Yi Zan's face darkened. Was his little disciple really so terrifying? Aulay laughed and replied, ahem, it's actually nothing. I called them over because I'm conducting a lesson for them. It's been a long time since I've held one for them. In any case, I'll take my leave first. As soon as he finished speaking, Aulay instantly led the children back, not daring to stay for a moment longer. As for whether the lesson he was talking about was true or not, who cared? Yi Zan turned around and looked at Shang Yun, who was reading obediently, and thought to himself, it's unlikely that there will be a problem. Thinking this, Yi Zan decided to return to Cloud Sky Peak, where Zhu Guoyu and Feng Xian were still waiting. With a flash of light, Yi Zan arrived in front of them. Teacher, how's the situation? Has third sister's matter really been settled? Zhu Guoyu asked anxiously. Hearing this, Yi Zan smiled and replied, it was easily settled. I just gave away 2 treasures. After hearing this, the two of them wiped the sweat off their foreheads guiltily. This was indeed Yi Zan's style of doing things. If it could be solved by giving something, he would never use other methods. Alright, you don't have to worry about Shang Yun anymore. However, both of you will be responsible for bringing her back to Cloud Sky Peak in the evening. Hearing this, Zhu Guoyu quickly agreed. However, inwardly, she was worried that Shang Yun would be expelled before the day was done again. If she beat up all of the children inside again, it would not be so easy to get back in. Alright, today, I'll teach you how to refine medicinal pills. Since both of you are new to alchemy, I'll teach you some simple things first. For example, the healing pill and the soul returning pill that are unique to our Cloud Sky Peak. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zan took out 2 cauldrons and some herbs, and gave them to his 2 disciples. Yi Zan had bought these cauldrons in Qingyang City and given it to them as a gift. Even though the cauldrons they were using right now were not of a very high grade, they could still be used to refine some simple medicinal pills. After doing all this, Yi Zan also transmitted the refining method for the soul returning pill to them. There is a clear difference between alchemy and cultivation, he said. Alchemy tests your patience, your eye for detail, and your control over the flames. During the refining process, all of you must be alert and observant at all times. Only then will you be able to refine a good pill. Otherwise, you will end up with a cauldron full of useless pills. After hearing this, the 2 of them became very serious and replied seriously, we understand. Zhu Guoyu was not very interested in refining pills. After all, her attributes were the exact opposite of Feng Xian's. Her control over flames was not that strong either. It was precisely because of this that Zhu Guoyu could only rely on her own spiritual power to control the refining process. If her own spiritual power was exhausted, then the refining process would fail. However, Feng Xian was different. Her attribute was fire, and she also cultivated the hellfire technique. As such, she could easily control flames, and was more suited to alchemy. She could even continuously improve her mastery of the Hellfire technique while refining pills. In other words, Feng Xian was cultivating while she was refining pills. After examining the refining method that Yi Zan had taught them, Feng Xian rushed to refine the pill first. One could see that she was adding the herbs one by one into the cauldron in a certain order. Her two hands formed different palm imprints in front of the cauldron, and extremely powerful flames instantly enveloped the entire cauldron. As the temperature rose, the various herbs inside turned into liquid. Yi Zan looked at it carefully and even released his spiritual sense to check the state of the herbs inside. Focus, Yi Zan said, pay attention to your control over the flames and control your spiritual power to slowly condense the medicinal liquid. After hearing these words, Feng Xian became even more energetic. She released her spiritual power, causing the entire cauldron to start spinning. Because Feng Xian's control over the flames was good, the early stage of the refining process went very smoothly. After all of the herbs inside had turned into medicinal liquid, she immediately erupted with even more spiritual power. She controlled the medicinal liquid inside and began to condense it into a pill. After an hour, the refining process was finally completed. The lid of the cauldron flew up, and a few pills slowly rose up. Yi Zan caught the pills and looked at them, then said, "They are all right. Even though the quality of these pills isn't great, this is only your first attempt. It's already quite good that you can do this." To be able to achieve this result on her first attempt was really admirable, and spoke volumes of her talent for alchemy. 635 Learning Alchemy Part 2. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So when she grew more proficient, she would definitely be able to refine higher grade pills. On the other side, Zhu Yuyu was starting to feel overwhelmed. Unlike Feng Xian, she did not manage to form any pills on her first attempt. Feeling a little helpless, she could only look at her teacher and say, "Teacher, I'm not really suited to alchemy. Why don't I continue to cultivate the sword Dao?" Even though she was a little disappointed in herself, her attributes were unsuitable and basically hindered her progress. There was little she could do about it. After all, everyone was born different. She was suited to cultivate the sword Dao of the sword, Xian was suited for alchemy, and Xiangyun was suited for cough. She was quite suited for fighting. Seeing that Zhu Yuyu really did not want to refine pills, Yi Zan had no choice but to acquiesce. Alright, since you don't want to refine pills, head back and continue to cultivate your sword Dao. I also have high hopes for you. I hope that one day, you can inherit my position as Sword Immortal and become an unparalleled figure in terms of the sword Dao. After hearing this, Zhu Yuyu was overjoyed. Yi Zan's praise was her greatest motivation. As Yi Zan's first disciple, she naturally had to practice her teacher's sword techniques well. She hoped that she could become a peerless sword cultivator like her teacher, and dominate the world with her sword. Teacher, I will definitely not let you down. Just wait and see. I will definitely become a sword Dao expert, Zhu Yuyu clenched her fists and said. When it came to sword cultivation, she was far more confident. Alright, go back and cultivate. I believe in you. Bearing Yi Zan's expectations for her, Zhu Yuyu went to the rear of the mountain to practice her Hell Slash. In these less than 30 days, she had to master the Hell Slash. As for Feng Xian, after she finished refining a pill, she only rested for a moment before starting to refine another. Yi Zan had been standing by her side, guiding her and helping to point out her mistakes. Ding. As you have taught your disciple the refining method for the soul returning pill, you have received a 10,000x critical reward. Ding. As you have given your disciple a certain number of herbs, you have received a critical reward. Here it comes. Let's see what my luck is like. Ding. Congratulations. You have obtained the refining method for a high-grade soul returning pill. Do you want to learn it immediately? There's actually a high-grade soul returning pill. Yi Zan was dumbfounded. He carefully examined the refining method and details, following which, he was beside himself in shock. Although this high-grade soul-returning pill can't bring the dead back to life, it can heal any serious injuries and even restore one's physical strength. This was a really good thing to have in a fight. Haha, this pill is really not bad. After understanding its effects, Yi Zan was elated. The system's rewards had all been very pleasing recently. Ding. Congratulations, you have obtained 3 rare spiritual herbs and a portion of high-grade spirit herbs. After hearing this notification, Yi Zan was suddenly filled with anticipation. It was actually the herbs required to refine the high-grade soul-returning pill. Yi Zan was stunned. Wow, the system was being really considerate nowadays. Just as he was immersed in joy, Feng Xian suddenly came forward excitedly. She clutched a few soul-returning pills tightly in her hand and shouted happily, "Teacher, I think I succeeded." Hearing this, Yi Zan was shocked and quickly took the pills from her hand and examined them. Pretty good. At this moment, Yi Zan looked at his disciple in shock. He had not expected that she would have such shocking talent for alchemy. This was only her second time refining pills, yet she had refined a few high-quality medicinal pills. Cough, cough, these are good. Keep up the good work. So far, each of the 3 disciples he had taken in had their own strengths. Zhu Guiyu was good with the sword, Feng Xian at alchemy, and Shang Yun possessed terrifying strength. This is only your second time making a soul-returning pill, yet you've already reached this level. Very good. Xian, you're very talented when it comes to alchemy, but you can't be arrogant. After all, the soul-returning pill you just made is just one of the basic pills. You can refine it a few more times to get yourself familiar with it. After a few days, I'll teach you how to refine other pills, such as the Feather Immortal pill. After hearing this, Feng Xian's eyes instantly lit up. She was very excited. She had also heard of the Feather Immortal pill and knew how powerful it was. If she could really master alchemy, then she would be able to support the peak in terms of cultivation resources in the future. Okay, teacher, I understand, she said excitedly. Then, she carried her cauldron back to her room to continue practicing. 636. Oh no, again. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. After watching Feng Xian leave, Yi Zan returned to the Cloud Sky Palace. Once there, he began to study the refining method for the high-grade soul-returning pill. The reason why he wanted to refine it secretly was not because he wanted to hide it from his disciples, but rather because he did not want to make a fool of himself in front of his disciples for not knowing how to refine this pill. The refining method for the soul-returning pill he taught Feng Xian was something that Chief Tianzan had left for him. He himself did not have a deep understanding of alchemy in the mystic world. After seeing Feng Xian refine a pill in one attempt, Yi Zan could not help but feel a little nervous. If he did not succeed on his first try, as her teacher, would he not damage his reputation and image? As such, he had to practice secretly. Only once he had successfully refined it would he show and teach it to Feng Xian. After placing the boundless cauldron in place, Yi Zan began to study the refining method seriously. Alright, I'll first divide the herbs that I'll be using into different types and arrange them properly. He wanted to familiarize himself with every aspect of the refining process instead of rushing into refining the pill itself. After everything was ready, Yi Zan controlled the boundless cauldron to float in front of him and slowly turn. Yi Zan was not a fire attribute cultivator, but this did not affect him much. After all, he was supported by his strength as a supreme realm cultivator, and did not have to worry about the problem of running out of spiritual power. Under his precise control, the entire boundless cauldron began to tremble. The temperature rose rapidly, and waves of green smoke rose into the air. Now, Yi Zan muttered to himself as his hands moved quickly. He placed herb after herb into the boundless cauldron in a certain order. He made a series of movements with his hands which caused the boundless cauldron to start to rotate. With the support of Yi Zan's spiritual power, the entire boundless cauldron emitted intense heat, causing the air to distort. It had only been a moment, but the herbs inside had already been turned into medicinal liquid, mixing their medicinal effects together. Now that the refinement was complete, Yi Zan added another spiritual herb that played a key role in it. Moments later, the concoction released thick smoke. Then, a loud noise was heard. Hearing this, Yi Zan was scared out of his wits. He felt that all of the spiritual herbs he had put in had gone to waste. However, when the smoke gradually dissipated, and the cauldron stopped shaking violently, the final spiritual herb had fused with the previous herbs. Yi Zan was very excited to see this, and made the cauldron spin around at a certain speed. After it completed 999 turns, the lid of the boundless cauldron opened and 9 pills floated out. Have I succeeded? Yi Zan mumbled to himself, and quickly grabbed the pills. After a careful inspection, Yi Zan was shocked. Heavens, had he actually refined such a high-quality pill with his first attempt? Looking at the 9 glittering pills, Yi Zan was in disbelief. Each of these 9 pills was of extremely high quality. Such a result was probably impossible even for some skilled alchemists. Haha, good, good. I'm still the best. He put the 9 pills away, and then realized that there were still 10 lower quality pills in the cauldron. He kept them as he felt that they might come in handy in the future. Then, just as he was about to make another batch of pills, someone knocked on the door of the Cloud Sky Palace. Yizan, don't hide inside. Come over quickly. His body trembled when he heard this furious voice. He immediately put his boundless cauldron into his storage space. When he opened the door, he saw Li Dahai's angry appearance, and beside him was a little kid who had been beaten black and blue. This little kid was naturally his son, Li Yi. Seeing this, Yizan immediately came to a conclusion, and the corners of his mouth began to twitch. Cough, cough, senior brother Li, what exactly happened? Who has the guts to make Li Yi look like this? Oh dear, how terrible. I don't think even his mother will be able to recognize him when he gets home. Yizan pretended to be confused. He even rubbed Li Yi's face with concern and said, quickly tell me who beat you up like this. I'll definitely help you deal with it. Hearing this, Li Yi burst into tears. He could not answer the question at all. Why was he still crying like this? He was completely unlike his father's mighty appearance. Li Dahai's face darkened. His heart was filled with anger as he said straightforwardly, Junior brother Yi, can you stop pretending? That little girl from your family has beaten my son up again. You have to give me a good explanation today. Otherwise, what am I going to do when I get home? Li Dahai felt angrier and angrier as he spoke. 637 Bribery again. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So had it not been for the fact that he was weaker than Yizan, he might have picked a fight with the latter. Who could bear to see their offspring like this? Yizan replied with a smile after hearing Li Dahai's question. Senior brother Li, don't be like that. My little disciple is only 6 years old, but your little boy is already 10 years old. Moreover, he has been taught by you for such a long time, so his combat strength must be pretty good, right? How could that little girl beat up your boy like this? Upon hearing this, Li Dahai suddenly had the urge to spit out blood. That's right, my kid is already 10 years old, and getting beaten up by a 6-year-old girl is kinda shameful. But what's not right is that the disciple you accepted is simply a weirdo. Li Dahai could not believe it and went over to check personally just now. As hard as it was to imagine, that 6-year-old girl actually created a pit several meters deep in the ground with a hammer. Li Dahai was already a few hundred years old, but this was the first time he had seen such a thing. Even the study hall had been turned into ruins by this little girl's hammer. Fortunately, the little girl did not use her full strength. Otherwise, this kid of his would probably have been smashed into meat paste by the hammer. His expression turned darker and darker, but he was helpless. The little girl's teacher was not someone he could deal with. He had to endure it even if he could not help it. You only know how to cry nonstop all day long. Can't you act a little more your age? How many times have I told you not to provoke that little girl, but you just wouldn't listen? Li Dahai cursed. After a while, he looked at Yizan and said, Junior brother Yi, I'm sure you understand your senior brother's situation very well. If I really bring this bruised and swollen kid back, I really won't be able to answer to the tigress at home. Don't blame me for being shameless. If you can't give me an explanation today, I'll just blame you when I go back. Li Dahai knew very well that he was no match for Yizan, so he had no choice but to resort to this. No matter what you say, my son was beaten up by your good disciple. Just tell me what you want to do. Yizan did not know what to say after hearing this. Who could have imagined that Li Dahai, who was mighty and powerful in the outside world and would go to war at the slightest disagreement, would actually be afraid of his wife? Yizan looked at Li Yi, who had been beaten black and blue, and pondered the matter. Wait a second, didn't I just refine a cauldron of high-grade soul-returning pills? At the thought of this, Yizan's lips curved into a smile. He coughed a few times before saying, Senior brother Li, what you said just now wasn't without reason. Moments later, he took out a low-quality high-grade soul-returning pill from his storage space. Yizan said hesitantly, Senior brother Li, you have my apologies. This little girl of mine is indeed too mischievous. She often causes trouble for me and even beat Marshal nephew Li Yi up so badly. I can't bear to see him like this. I happen to have a soul-returning pill here. Take it, it'll help him recover from his injuries. With that, Yizan reluctantly handed the high-grade soul-returning pill to Li Dahai. Li Dahai was dumbfounded when he saw this. His eyes were fixed on the soul-returning pill in Yizan's hand. FCK. He was able to give away such a precious pill so easily. I knew he had a lot of treasures, but seeing it for myself is really something else. He suddenly felt that his son's beating was not in vain. After being beaten up, he actually got a high-grade soul-returning pill. This deal was really worth it. Perhaps this should become a regular occurrence. Junior brother Yi, you're really too polite. We are brothers of the same sect, and the disciple you accept as my martial niece too. It's very common for kids to have some small conflicts. Actually, you don't have to be like this. It's just a little fun between kids. It's not worth it for you to give up a high-grade soul-returning pill, Li Dahai said nonchalantly, but his hand movements betrayed him, as he quickly put away the pill. Yi Zan was dumbfounded by this. It seemed that his senior brother had the qualifications to vie for an Oscar award. Impressive. Ding. Congratulations on giving Li Dahai a high-grade soul-returning pill. You have received a 10,000x critical reward. Ding. Congratulations. The host has obtained an immortal-grade blood recovery pill. Immortal grade. Yi Zan was pleased as punch. The system was being good to him again. 638 Big Trouble. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. The effects of this immortal grade pill were pretty good. As long as one consumed it, they could immediately recover their physical strength in battle. Even their spiritual power would be restored to its peak state. Despite the turbulent waves in his heart, Yi Zan's expression was still very calm, and he instantly put the pill into his storage space. Li Dahai also hurriedly put away the pill Yi Zan gave him, afraid that the latter would regret his decision and take them back. He looked extremely excited. Looking at him, it even seemed like he was not going to give it to Li Yi. Yi Zan laughed. Senior brother Li, why don't you give it to Li Yi so he can recover? Li Dahai looked embarrassed. Although Li Yi looked like he had been beaten up very badly, it was only a superficial injury. He could just take a normal healing pill. There was no need to take a pill this valuable. If he really ate it, it would be like using a cannon to hit a bird. In other words, it would be total overkill. Li Dahai had already decided to keep the pill for now. Even if he had to suffer the wrath of the tigress when he got home, it was worth it. He was on the verge of making a breakthrough at any moment. With this pill, he was even more confident of his success. He was the most suitable person for this pill. At the thought of this, Li Dahai immediately said righteously with a serious expression, "Young man, suffering a little now to learn from your mistakes is a good thing. I need him to experience the price of provoking others so that he can avoid future troubles. Thank you, Junior brother Yi, for your kind intentions. Cough, cough. Since there's nothing else, I'll take my son home first." Yi Zan was speechless, but he did not say anything. Li Dahai could do whatever he wanted. The only regretful thing was that he did not get to see the effects of this low-quality high-grade soul-returning pill personally. However, this was not a big deal. After all, he still had more, and could try it another day. Before he left, Li Dahai turned around and looked at Yi Zan. "There's something I almost forgot to tell you. You should hurry over to the main peak to take a look when you have the time." A little longer, and the meeting hall on the main peak would have been torn down. Ah, this little girl was really good at causing trouble. He actually wanted to tear down the meeting hall. Oh no, I have to hurry over first. Otherwise, the others will also come over with grievances. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zan rushed directly to the main peak, not daring to delay a moment longer. This little girl really made him worry too much. Originally, he thought that Xiangyun would definitely be obedient this time and learn to read. However, it seemed that the trouble she had caused this time was much bigger than before. Was she trying to tear down the meeting hall? He activated the fiery phoenix technique at full strength, and in the blink of an eye, reached the main peak. Once there, he spotted what was left of the study hall. It truly was an unbearable sight. Sigh, this would cause even more problems for him. After quickly checking the surrounding situation, he noticed the commotion in the distance, so he quickly flew over. A petite girl could be seen holding a big hammer with one hand as she spoke to a group of disciples in front of her. "Don't waste my time. Come at me together. I'll beat all of you up." The commotion in this place had already spread, so all of the nearby disciples had rushed over to see what was going on. However, when the disciples saw what was going on, they were gobsmacked. A little girl who was at most 6 years old had actually destroyed the entire study hall with just a big hammer. Just who took this little girl in as a disciple? She was 2FC King strong, no. I can't believe what I'm seeing. She's so young, but her strength has already reached a terrifying level. A group of people from the main peak took turns to fight, but they actually can't deal with her. Every strike of that hammer carries the force of 1,000,000 jin, you know. How do you expect us to deal with that? Can you? The group of disciples were panicking as they watched everything with wide eyes. However, the little girl in front of them was still closing in on the meeting hall, and the disciples were forced to retreat. Outside, Gao Tianyu's eyes were wide open as he watched this scene. He felt particularly emotional. Sigh, even little girls are so terrifying now. Comparing myself to her at her age, I'm really mediocre. Gao Tianyu heaved a long sigh. He now knew who this little girl was. If he was not wrong, this little girl must be the new disciple that Cloud Sky Peak accepted. If he had not witnessed everything that had happened today, he would have taken the whole thing for a joke. After all, who could believe that a little girl could actually be so powerful? After moving forward for a while, Xiangyun suddenly recalled something. She turned around and asked the crowd, "Who is Gao Tianyu? Is he here?" After saying that, Xiangyun threw the hammer in her hand down, shattering the ground. After hearing this, Gao Tianyu, who was originally here to watch the show, suddenly had a bad feeling. He broke out in cold sweat. Why is she suddenly calling me by my full name? She's looking for me. Gao Tianyu was also confused. He did not know what was going on. He could not recall provoking this little girl. After hearing Gao Tianyu's name, the crowd subconsciously looked at him. 639 mine. No, your peak is better. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Gao Tianyu could not help but tremble when he saw everyone's eyes on him. He turned around and looked behind him. Unfortunately, there was no one behind him, which made him all the more nervous. Oh! Gao Tianyu turned back, and saw that the crowd's eyes were still fixed on him. Then, he shamelessly said, "Which one of you is Gao Tianyu?" No one answered for a long time, so he waved his hand and said, "So Gao Tianyu isn't here. By the way, junior sister, why are you looking for Gao Tianyu?" Gao Tianyu pretended to be calm. At this point, he did not dare to take any risks. After all, he had come here to join in the fun and did not want to be the subject of the fun. Besides, even if this little girl could not defeat him, he did not dare to lay a hand on her. After all, she was Yi Zan's disciple. Even his father would not have the guts to do so. For this reason, he put up an act. Seeing that Gao Tianyu was not here, Xiangyun looked very disappointed. After all, she clearly remembered that her teacher had told her that her senior sister had beaten up Gao Tianyu. She said in an unpleasant tone as she waved her hammer around a few times. Why didn't he come? I can't even beat him up if he's not here. Gao Tianyu's heart turned cold when he heard this. If I remember correctly, I didn't provoke you, so why do you want to beat me up? Xiangyun suddenly thought of a good idea. She looked at Gao Tianyu and said with a smile, "Senior brother, you should know the way, right? Can you take me to Hidden Sword Peak?" Hearing this, Gao Tianyu immediately refused. Cough cough, actually, I'm not very familiar with that place, but junior sister, I suggest that you don't go to that place. After all, there are many terrifying monsters there. It's very scary, so it's better not to go. You're not lying to me, are you? Xiangyun became even more excited when she heard that there were terrifying monsters there. When everyone saw Gao Tianyu's expression, they all laughed inwardly. Why was the eldest disciple of Hidden Sword Peak acting so cowardly now? It was really quite refreshing to see him become so timid in front of a little girl. However, some people just wanted to watch the world burn. Junior sister, there's nothing fun to do here at the main peak. How about we take you to Hidden Sword Peak? I heard that there's a good place on top of the peak with many rare swords. If you can break that place apart with one strike, we'll be convinced of your strength. Upon hearing this, Gao Tianyu's face darkened, but Xiangyun became even more excited. That's great. Hurry up and take me to Hidden Sword Peak. Gao Tianyu's face turned pale with fear. He looked at the disciple who had just made the suggestion and made his decision. You're the one who started it anyway, so you can't blame me. I'll do the opposite. Thinking of this, Gao Tianyu suggested, Junior sister, Hidden Sword Peak is not fun. How about I bring you to Sword Spirit Peak? Sword Spirit Peak is the most interesting place, and there are many exotic beasts there, many of which you may not have seen before. Hearing this, the people from Sword Spirit Peak were shocked. FCK. Gao Tianyu was so evil. Don't. Sword Spirit Peak is not interesting at all. How about we go to Returning Clouds Peak instead? That place is very interesting. I'm just saying, isn't it better to go to the Skyreach Peak? The mountain peak is so tall that it reaches the clouds. It's tall, sturdy, and majestic. No, 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 junior sister, please listen to my advice and head to Water Sky Peak instead. After all, that place is full of beautiful sisters. It'll definitely be interesting to play with them. At this moment, the main peak was in chaos. These people were all trying to prevent Xiangyun from going over to their respective peaks. At this moment, Elder Huang rushed over. When he saw the ruined study hall, his face turned as black as charcoal. Who did this? Show yourself, Elder Huang shouted angrily. He had only left for such a short time, yet the place had gone up in smoke. After hearing Elder Huang's shout, the crowd quieted down at once and made way for him, allowing him to see the high-spirited Xiangyun. Elder Huang could not hold it in and spat out blood. Poochie. After coughing for a while, Elder Huang finally calmed down a little. He was so angry that he almost lost his life. Where did the hammer come from? He did not see it when she came over this morning. He had reminded her several times before he left, but who could have expected that his study hall would be gone in just 5 minutes? Elder Huang, don't die. Pull yourself together. Seeing that Elder Huang had fainted from the blow, the surrounding disciples quickly came forward and shook his body. After a long time, Elder Huang finally regained consciousness. He looked at the study that had been reduced to ruins and felt a chill run down his spine. It was all his fault. He should not have accepted the 2 treasures Yi Zan gave him. After taking a deep breath, Elder Huang finally adjusted himself. He did not scold Xiangyun. Instead, he came to her side with a kind expression. Little Xiangyun, why did you do this? Xiangyun pondered for a moment before she replied, they didn't believe that I could destroy the study hall with my hammer. Li Yi even called me a liar. 640 Seeking alternatives. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Since they didn't believe me, I had to prove it to them. Hearing Xiangyun's words, Elder Huang's face darkened. Why was someone always messing with this little girl? They knew the consequences, but provoked her anyway. Sigh. What happened after that? They still didn't believe me after I destroyed the church, so I beat them up. After a while, a few senior brothers happened to pass by here. They tried to attack me, so I fought them. Elder Huang turned around and found that several people from the main peak had been beaten up, each of them with a swollen face. They had never expected that they would not be able to defeat a 6-year-old girl. Just as she was about to continue speaking, a figure appeared in a flash, and Yi Zan was already beside her. After seeing Yi Zan appear, everyone present relaxed. If he had not hurried over, they were really afraid that the meeting hall would be demolished as well. This little girl was not afraid of anything. As long as she wanted to do something, she had the guts to do it. Greetings, Marshal Uncle Yi. The group of disciples quickly saluted Yi Zan. Unlike Elder Huang, Yi Zan was the chief of Cloud Sky Peak and was renowned for his strength. He was the object of their worship. Yi Zan waved his hand at them and stared at Xiangyun without saying a word. He had already understood what had just happened. This was indeed her usual style. Yuner. Xiangyun was frightened and quickly lowered her head, unable to say a word. After a while, Aolei also arrived. Seeing the study hall in ruins, his face darkened. Sigh. It's not unexpected at all. This little girl really knows how to kick up a fuss. Junior brother Yi, can't you give me a moment's rest? Senior brother Ao, you have my apologies. The cost of reconstructing the study hall will be borne by Cloud Sky Peak. Yi Zan smiled awkwardly. Yi Zan was both helpless and impressed by his disciple. At this moment, Aolei was looking helplessly at Xiangyun, who was in turn looking at Aolei with an aggrieved expression. The staring contest was quite comical. After sighing helplessly, Aolei said, forget it. Let's just leave this matter as is. There's no need for junior brother Yi to foot the bill. It's not expensive anyway. Aolei felt a sense of lingering fear. Fortunately, he had brought the children from his peak back in advance, or they would have been beaten up as well. Junior brother Yi. Just as Yi Zan was about to speak, Elder Huang ran over. It's best if you don't send your little girl here. I really can't continue to teach her. Just do me a favor and let me. I really can't take it anymore. Without hesitation, he took out the 2 treasures that Yi Zan had given him before and said, Junior brother Yi, please take these 2 things back. I really can't accept them. Can we just drop today's matter? Yi Zan was also very helpless and did not take the 2 treasures that Elder Huang handed back. Yi Zan turned around and looked at Xiangyun. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. In any case, her journey of learning how to read and write this time had to be declared over. After thinking for a moment, Yi Zan said in embarrassment. Ahem, Elder Huang, you can keep those two things. Consider it a small gift from me. I'm really sorry that this happened again. I won't trouble you with this little girl's literacy anymore. Hearing this, Elder Huang's mood improved. Teacher. Yi Zan was about to continue when Shang Yun shook his arm and spoke pitifully. This time, I can't continue to learn how to read and write. Hearing this, he helplessly coaxed her. It's fine. You can definitely continue to read and write. I just have to find you another teacher, okay? After thinking for a while, Shang Yun tilted her head and said, will there be other children playing with me? Yi Zan was very scared. At this time, she still wanted to play. If he let that happen, then perhaps even Cloud Sky Palace would be torn down. No, that could not be allowed. Cloud Sky Palace was brand new. At this moment, Yi Zan suddenly noticed Gao Tianyu, who was standing in the crowd, and said slyly, ahem, if you want to play with someone, I'll bring you to Hidden Sword Peak and you can play with their disciples, okay? Sword Peak and you can